Hallucinogens and Religion, a tale as old as time. Religion has been a part of the human experience since before history. In fact, most of our early history comes from religious texts. And, as I will show you throughout this video essay, religion is directly related to our use of hallucinogens, so that people may experience what others have called other planes of existence, or even experiences with the God of their belief. In fact, as John Baker writes, the ubiquity of the human desire to experience non-ordinary states of consciousness is an expression of a biological drive as basic as the drive towards food, drink, or sex. This desire will be what guides us through the journey to finding a God throughout the world, all by using hallucinogens. We'll start in South America, as that is the most widely researched use of hallucinogens in a religious context, with it often still being used to this day. The Aztecs would use a substance called teotlacuali. This substance, used as an ointment by the priests and emperors, would cause hallucinations, which was common in ancient Mexico, as contact with supernatural forces was often established by taking hallucinogens. The commonality of talking to deities through hallucinogens in Mexico is not the only place that this will show up, and while it warrants a paper all its own, it is not the focus of this study, so we will move on. This ointment also caused a lack of fear, which was used for when the priests had to sacrifice humans by opening the chest and cutting out the heart, or more often for the priests, most likely when the priests would perform ceremonies at night in remote, dark caves where they worshipped their gods totally without fear of injury and harm. This use of hallucinogens in the Aztec religion, and indeed in many South American religions, is seen widely even to this day. In parts of the Amazon, hallucinogens are used for healing ceremonies as well as talking to their deities. The healing ceremonies involve inducing visions in everyone so that the healer can discover the causes of illness and neutralize or cure the effects of evil spirits or people. For talking to deities in these cultures, it is usually done alone, and this vision quest of sorts allows them to communicate with these deities. Again, this use of hallucinations to either heal or communicate runs rampant throughout South American culture. It seems so commonplace here, and yet in European culture it is almost never talked about, so then how can it be a universal human phenomenon? Well, new evidence is showing us that it had actually been happening in Europe and Asia for centuries. However, it was hidden, either by the groups who were originally partaking in these psychedelic sacraments, or by groups later who did not want to be associated with the drugs. A man by the name of Brian Muraresku has finally found scientific evidence that there were groups who would go on psychedelic pilgrimages to a site called
Eleusis as the spiritual capital of the Greco-Roman world. In antiquity, it was this pilgrimage site where the best and brightest of Athens and Rome went to drink a potion, have this vision of a goddess, and become themselves divine, which I know sounds crazy, but it included the best and brightest of antiquity, like Plato, Cicero, and Marcus Aurelius.
Now, a lot of what he is looking for was something called ergotized beer or wine. This fungi grows on crops of wheat, barley, and most commonly rye, and is what LSD is synthesized from. When not treated properly, it can have some pretty nasty symptoms, which this clip describes well.
Records abound of the sufferings of people, especially the poor, of fiery burning pains along the limbs, mutilations from gangrene, delirium, convulsions, hallucinations, and in many cases, death.
This became such a commonplace thing that some of the symptoms,
particularly with the burning pains which preceded it, became known as St. Anthony's fire.
However, what we are most interested in here is the hallucinogenic properties of ergot. Going into Christian territory, we don't have much evidence to support the use of hallucinogens. However, in Corinth, not far from Eleusis, Paul, in his letter to the Corinthians, addresses some of the early Christians and is angry with them for taking the wrong Eucharist. The verse in question, when translated, often reads that many of them have fallen asleep. Now, the word in question, koimao, does not mean to fall asleep.
Koimao means to die, because it's the exact word that John's gospel uses about Lazarus. Remember the famous miracle where Lazarus dies and he's resurrected? That'd be a pretty shitty miracle if Lazarus was just taking a nap and Jesus went to wake him up from a nap.
What is interesting here is that at this time, Greece did not know what alcohol was. They had wine, but they didn't understand that it had alcohol yet. So if they didn't understand that they might have been dying from alcohol poisoning, what then would Paul be talking about? And most likely it's that this wine that they were drinking was spiked with something that was not pure. All in all, there is plenty of evidence to show that hallucinogens have been a regular part of religion in South America, and as we begin to talk about psychedelics in Western culture, we appear to be finding more and more to show us that there may be a history of hallucinogenic use, no matter the culture or continent.